Okay, to recap what are, in my opinion, the most fun and best ways to play Elden Ring. At number 8, we have Distance Casters, just casting overpowered spells from a distance. At number 7, we have pure stance break builds, which are a little bit tougher past NG+5. At number 6, we have weapons with Gap Closer, Ashes of War that get you in close to an enemy. At number 5, we have ranged Ash of Wars, so you don't even need to bother getting close to an enemy. At number 4, we have the various big number spells that do ridiculous damage. At number 3, we have DPS focus builds that just shred health bars. And at number 2, we had charged heavy builds that do a lot of damage and a lot of stance damage. So what is number 1? Well, in my opinion, my favorite way and the best way to play Elden Ring is with weapons with broken and unique Ashes of War. So these are somber weapons, and they have attacks that are unique to them, can't be duplicated in other weapons. And so I just think that is the most unique and fun way to play Elden Ring. So here we go. At number 10, I put it at number 10 because it's too good to ignore, but I don't really play with this anymore because it's just barely even fun, is the Blasphemous Blade. It's obviously a ridiculous weapon. Fire damage is very good against most of the bosses in the game. The Ash of War is all you need to do. You just spam L2, it heals you, it does a ton of damage. The DLC gave you new talismans to buff it, the Talisman of the Dread, and you can buff fire damage in your tier, and with the Fire Scorpion Charm, you buff the Ash of War, and it heals you. It's just nuts. It makes the game really easy. Here I am against Romana, one of the, in my opinion, like, she's not one of the hardest bosses in the game. I just have, like, one of the hardest times beating her. So I just slapped on the Blasphemous Blade and beat her in, like, 1 or 2 tries without even really, I do know her moveset, but just, like, I didn't even need to. I just kind of avoid the butterflies and kill her. So great weapon, just not super fun, in my humble opinion. At number 9, we have the Katana Rivers of Blood. I really like this weapon. I have heard people online say that just use a Naga Kibo with double slash and it's better than Rivers of Blood, but I don't really buy that. I think that Rivers of Blood has a cool animation, has really good range, causes a lot of bleed buildup, which is very buffable. It does successive attacks, which is very buffable. It just looks awesome. It does some fire damage. It just, like, bullies Millennia, as you'll see. This is, like, a decently long fight, but I can't take Millennia out quickly. I have to, this is easily my favorite way to fight Millennia, because it can kind of throw her around. It can interrupt her attacks. It causes bleed, which triggers the White Mask and the Lord of Blood's Exaltation. Just, like, ridiculous. It does so much damage. This is NG+7 Millennia. It took me, like, 3 tries, and I'm not that good. It's like literally just the weapon. So it's a lot of fun. I don't care that you can probably duplicate, like if you do like, what's that Blood Blade skill? Blood Flame Blade. You can do Blood Flame Blade on a Naga Kiba and use double slash, and maybe it's the same, whatever. It's not the same because Blood Flame Blade runs out. You have to recast it. Whereas Corpse Piler is just always there. It's so reliable, and just, I think the animation looks really cool. It makes me feel really strong. And yeah, Millennia doesn't really stand a chance against it. I two-hand the katana. You don't really need to. You do get it pretty late in the game, but anyway, I'm talking about NG+7 here. So every weapon in the game is fair game. My stats are high, although this isn't mainly a dex build. This is a strength arcane build for the most part, with a decent amount of dex, like 40 dex or something. And it's still just smashing her. I have, without the silver tier mask, I have 72 arcane, so decent arcane, and took her out, without too much trouble, just dodging a few of her attacks and then bullying her. Number 7 is the Sacred Relic Sword. It is the holy sword you get from the Remembrance of Elden Beast, the Elden Remembrance, and it's really, really good. It has this ridiculous casting animation that just like takes out it just sweeps the entire board in front of you. And Niall is like a pretty, decent boss. Like, he has a lot of health. He's not that easy to kill. He doesn't really have easy, cheap ways. I guess he has like Comet Azure and intelligence, but I am, this is my preferred method to take him out on my Faith build because it's just super easy. You just kind of cast and forget it. One downside, the reason it's a little lower on the list, is it takes a lot of stamina, so you can't like spam it. It is the opposite of spammable. But it is very buffable. It's an Ash, it's an Ash of War. All these are Ash of War, so Shard of Alexander is going to be really important on all of these. It has a really great AoE. Nobody can really escape it. It gets NPCs, it gets big bosses. Yeah, really fun weapon to use. And it's not just for farming, although it is really good at farming runes too from Albinorix. And that is frankly how I use it the most, but I do enjoy it against, mob bosses like Niall who summons the 2 summons, and they're just taken out before they get to me with this skill. So great weapon, very fun. Number 6 is Carrion Sovereignty. I guess I'm breaking my rule. This isn't like a broken unique Ash of War, but it is a broken Ash of War. Nonetheless, you can infuse it on anything you want. I put it on a great katana. It's also great on great swords because you get a little bit more poise while you're casting it. And you can do it uncharged if you have a little bit less of an opening. You can do it charged if you have a little bit more of an opening. There's a follow-up attack. It can easily do 10k damage with like pretty minimal buffs. I think all I have here is Golden Vow, Hallow Shabriri. I'm not even inside Terra Magica. But if you can like set it up, like the fully charged, I didn't get to do the follow-up because he jumped up, but I was halfway to 10,000 there. So it's just an extremely good Ash of War. Little hard to pull off though, but worth it. Number 5, again, we're at Niall. I am using the Mohgwyn Sacred Spear that obviously you get from defeating Mohg, Lord of Blood, and the Ash of War on this is just absolutely nuts. It does a ton of damage, 17,000 there if you get the full thing off. It does fire damage, it does a little bit of bleed. I guess I heard it used to do more bleed, which is ridiculous. That makes it sound so broken, but yeah, I mean, look at that. I cast it once and Commander Niall is down to like 25% health, so then it's just a minor little fight, to knock out the rest of it. And again, like the Sacred Relic Sword, actually, like a couple of these, it can be a little bit hard to use, like Carrion Sovereignty, but when you do, it's just amazingly worth it. So had to be on this list. Number 4, Death's Poker, is, in my opinion, the definition of a broken Ash of War. You can cast this little trail that does a ton of damage and builds up Frostbite. You can do an explosion like right there. It's just nutty. It's such a fun weapon. It's a little bit easier to use than the previous ones on here, but it's not the easiest. You have to have the right situation for it. But it is the definition of a broken Ash of War. At number 3 is Moonveil, because it comes out so quick. It has distance, it's basically a projectile. It does good stance damage, it does amazing magic damage, and if the weapon connects, it actually builds up bleed. It is an incredible weapon, and after the DLC, it is also boosted by Rolana's cameo. If you have a second to hold the stance, less than a second, I think it's like 3/4 of a second, it does 45% more damage. If you don't have the time, you can just bust out a R1, a light attack after the stance, and it just is crazy. It does a ton of damage. It's so fast. It's unbelievably fast. That, I think, is the main reason why it's great, is because you can do a really good amount of damage really fast. If you hold it, you do an even better amount of damage. If you're inside Terra Magica with maximal buffs, you can easily do like 10,000 damage for a heavy. So with this kind of speed and that kind of damage, it just is easily at the top of the list. And so much fun. At number 2 is the Marius Executioner Sword. Not objectively the best, and it is objectively very difficult, but subjectively, I just love this skill. I love this weapon. I have so much fun with it. I'm not going to make you watch this entire Fire Giant fight, but as I mentioned in the DPS ranking or DPS video, this weapon is very buffable with magic damage, with consecutive attacks, with Shard of Alexander, with the Godfrey icon. Just really cool. I think it feels awesome, and there's nothing else to it. So it's my second favorite way to play the game, but my first favorite way to play the game is without a doubt the Darkmoon Greatsword. It is my go-to. The weapon skill, the Broken Ash of War, is that it launches this projectile out, and it's not something you need to cast every time. It just imbues your weapon. And that's what I like about it the most, is that you can use it like any other weapon, but it just, you cast the Ash of War, and it just makes it a broken version of any normal fight. And I love that. Whenever I'm having trouble with Tattersail, this is the weapon I go to. Rebuffing it in the middle of the fight. It does a lot of stance damage. It does a shit ton of damage. It builds up cold. It is just, without a doubt, the most broken, the most fun way. It's just the right combo of stuff for me to make it my favorite way to play this game, bar none. You feel like you're playing just with a normal weapon, a normal greatsword, but you're not playing with the normal greatsword. You are playing with probably the strongest weapon in the game, one of the best status effects. I think cold is the best status effect, the second best status effect after bleed. If this thing did bleed, it would just be way too broken. got a stance break on NG+7 Horaloo. You know, I can't say enough about this weapon. It's so much fun. So this has been, my favorite way to play the game, and I hope you can try out some of these builds, or maybe you learn something. So hey, enjoy.